podcast is brought to you by Hoare Chartered Accountants. Hoare Chartered Accountants are based in Galway City and are a leading provider of audit, accountancy and taxation services. For more information, visit hoarecharteredaccountants.ie. Now you're welcome along to the Maroon and White pod, and Galway have got their Leinster Senior Hurling Championship off to the perfect start with a 15-point victory over Kilkenny in the end, 326 to 115 on Saturday evening in Pearse Stadium. The attention now turns to Offaly this weekend on Sunday afternoon in Pearse Stadium. Throw in there is 3:30. I'm joined by John Fallon to look back on Galway's comprehensive victory over Kilkenny. John, if someone was to say to you, Galway are going to beat Kilkenny by 18 points and then 15 points when it came to the championship, I'm sure you would have been surprised considering all the Galway Kilkenny games down the years you would have covered.
You'd have probably asked yourself, surprised that Kilkenny had a football team, and you'd presume they'd be the sort of scores. I thought we all thought the 18 points 6 weeks ago in the league was one of those freakish ones. And you get those, one team gets a run, the other doesn't, and you can get weird and wonderful results every so often. Go against you just as much. But I don't think anybody got carried away that evening on the basis that they felt, look, Kilkenny will never be as bad. Galway, everything they struck, what was it, 35 points that day. You'll never have a day quite as good and all that. And least of all come championship. And I just felt the majority of people, most of whom were from Galway, of over the 10,000 that came to Pearse Stadium on Saturday, came as much to see the Kilkenny backlash as anything else and see how would Galway react to it. And to a degree, they were shortchanged, no fault to Galway. But Kilkenny, um, good and all as the Galway performance was, and so many of the young players and such the wonderful scores, surely the biggest part of it is how far has Kilkenny gone back? We've never seen Kilkenny team with so much to prove. They'd come there, they'd got their hammering a few weeks earlier. Here was the time, to lay it out. I don't think most people expected them to beat Galway. I think everyone, Galway supporters included, expected Galway to win. But they won it in a canter. They actually, I thought, won it handier than they won the league match. And fair dues to them. And you beat what's in front of you, and they sure as hell beat them, beat them well. But I just still, several days later, find it incredulous that was a Kilkenny Senior Hurling Championship team. Um, when I say I've always admired them, I've admired them because they've always been so good and ruthless. When I started getting an interest in hurling back in the 70s as a kid, the Eddie Cares and the Liam O'Briens, the Chunky O'Briens and all this were in their prompt, and you'd love to hate them but couldn't. And what they did to Galway teams then. And Galway always had a measure, and Kilkenny people will tell you Galway, they always feared Galway, but it was always tight matches. It was always, a couple of scores, two demolitions, 1 month after the next. And now Kilkenny are battling against Wexford this weekend to stay in the Leinster Championship. We totally forget they've won the last six Leinster titles in a row. Um, but I can only imagine the post-mortem going on there, but good luck to them. Let them deal with that themselves. I don't think to be too many in Galway having sympathy for them because there's a huge buzz around Galway hurling at the moment, and rightly so.
I know as supporters, we probably will say when I suppose we see these results against Kilkenny, it's no harm because they're a county that have given us plenty of suffering down through the years. But even as you mentioned there, the buzz and the excitement and the way Galway hurling is playing. Like I remember we were chatting after the podcast last year after the Leinster final, and the mood definitely wasn't that good. Like there hasn't been this buzz for quite a long time.
No, there hasn't. And with a buzz like that comes expectation. And there was expectation on Galway last Saturday. And that can often be like it's an outside influence as such, but it can often be difficult for teams to take on board and deal with. Galway dealt with it very, very easily last Saturday. And the buzz is coming there is coming from so many different fronts. Like if somebody had said to you last prior to this championship that Colin Mannion would not score for Galway against Kilkenny, and Conor Whelan would only manage a point, and you'd be sort of calculating how much Galway were going to get beaten by, because those two guys have carried, with all due respects to everyone else, the Galway scoring threat for the last good many years. And they had an input, of course, they did last Saturday, but the scoring, what was it, 14 different scorers, I think
Yeah.
I counted. 14 different scorers. I think all the subs apart from Kieran Hanrahan, and he came on at cornerback. And I think he even had a goal as well, if I'm not mistaken, actually. But for lads to come on, make an impact like that, I still find it incredulous. This time last year, Aaron Nyland and Jason Rabbit were leaving cert students. And now they're senior intercounty hurlers with impact. I think back to myself when I was in intercert, like we might have had, we were mainly a football school, but you might have had lads making county minor teams. And gosh, that was a big deal in itself. But these are senior championship hurlers and all that entails with it. It's a phenomenal turn, really, and full credit to them.
I was even thinking these young lads at the moment that have come into the team, it's been even quite a while. And even if you go back to even 17, 18 when Galway were competing for All Irelands, it was a lot of the team previously that were there. There wasn't this influx of young fellas that have come in all at the one time.
Yeah, I think you're really going back to about 14 years, I think, since you had
Yeah.
this turnover, I think from the John McIntyre to the Anthony Cunningham era,
Mm.
the major shift in numbers and stuff like that time. Everything else has been incremental and to a large degree ever since. So it is a big turnover, but I think last year showed as well there needed to be. You needed to bring in, and like if you compare it with it as well, like Kilkenny haven't won an All Ireland minor title, I think, since 2014. Galway have won, is it five since then? Under 20s, Galway haven't won since 2011. Like they haven't pushed on with those ones, but I think Kilkenny have only won one. It was that one that, to a degree, they robbed a couple of years ago, in 2022. Um, so that sort of conveyor belt in Kilkenny has not really been there. We still see it a bit with St. Kieran's and that, but that's sort of, gosh, every year you went up to the All Ireland, there was nearly Kilkenny team in the minor final. That hasn't been
Mm.
happening. And it's a small county, they've depended on their junior intermediate teams. In contrast, Galway have had this flush of players. You still see them coming through the schools. They're strong there. They're strong at minor. They're still strong at under 20, even though they haven't been winning All Irelands, and maybe that might change this year. So, in terms of the talent pool, Galway is much stronger than Kilkenny. I think that showed big time as well last Saturday and in that league match, and maybe in the next couple of years ahead as well. Like that, it's that supply line for Kilkenny seems to have dried up, incredible as that might seem, but the opposite is the case in Galway. And it appears to me, O'Donoghue and his selectors, they're giving those lads their opportunity. If age doesn't seem to come into it, if you're good enough in what you're doing in training and doing elsewhere, you're in, and that's it. And we saw that with young Rabbit, young Nyland, Rory Burke, Keane Daniels, all of these. You're in if you're good enough.
As Galway hurling supporters, it's sort of good now to start getting carried away, isn't
Absolutely. We do that quite well, don't we? I haven't heard talks of the double just yet, but maybe if we see off Leitrim on Saturday, that will happen. I think I'd look at it a different way, Paul. I don't think Galway hurling supporters have had an awful lot to shout about since
it?
about 2018. To be brutally honest about it, there was an expectation more would have followed. That didn't happen on and off the pitch. There've been issues, and there hasn't been a whole lot for Galway hurling followers to get behind. And I think we've said this before, like there's a bigger hurling following in Galway than a football one. There's a very strong hardcore football followers there. But in terms of numbers, I've often measured it. I think if both teams were in an All-Ireland final, you'd need about 50,000 tickets to satisfy the hurling support. 30,000 would satisfy the football one. It's not necessarily comparing one with the other, but just to put it into context. Galway football has been there or thereabouts for the last 5, 6, 7 years. All Ireland final appearances, winning Connacht. There's been been a lot to cheer about. Paul Conroy, Footballer of the Year, All-Star, a lot of buzz around that. And it's been false dawns with the hurlers. And I think a lot were nearly, there was a bit of trepidation among some of them as the buzz is building up. Um, and it's now a bit of a burden on Neil O'Donoghue and his management to deal with that expectation. Start next Sunday against Offaly. You presume if you beat Kilkenny by 15 points, you'll do the same to Offaly. And that mightn't be as straightforward at all. And I'm sure that's something they'll be drilling in. But it is thankfully long overdue, an opportunity and a chance for Galway supporters to actually, get out there and have something to shout about. And it's a two-way street. That Galway hurlers can't expect supporters coming out unless they're delivering something, and it works vice versa. So yeah, it's there's a lot to shout about at the moment, but I don't think anyone will be getting too carried away. I think, in all fairness, anybody you know that's watching hurling, anyone with passive interest in hurling will follow the Munster Hurling Championship quite closely because, in fairness, there's such drama in it, and I think that's always a sobering effect, because it's hard to compare. Um, like we were all looking at Cork and Tip last weekend, but goodness gracious, Clare and Waterford, like that
Mm.
scale of it, the pace of it, the scores of it. I don't think anybody else will be getting too carried away, no matter how good you're going, when you're looking at that level of intensity. And, only three of those five teams are going to come out of it. They're going to be battle hardened. So that'll keep feet on the ground, I would imagine. And that'll suit the likes of Galway.
Just before we get in and look at the game and look at Galway's performance, obviously there was an improvement in the crowd from the league games. It's safe to say, safe to say throughout the league, the crowds weren't too hectic. Over 10,000 on Saturday, but then if you still do compare it to Ennis on Sunday, you get 18,000 in Ennis.
Yeah.
So obviously there is a bit more interest in the Munster Championship, but it is something that you want to see, I suppose, more, I suppose, bums on seats, particularly for your home games.
They would, and I wonder if everyone that set out on Saturday to go to Pearse Stadium got there on time. You might have seen a lot more. I've been hearing horror stories about it ever since. I know there was a big match on in the sports ground as well, and the whole lot of it. But and it's a county venue and all that. But surely there has to be a better way to funnel people there and back in it. It's
Yeah.
it's there was always going to be that, in advance with regard to ticket sales, so on and so forth. I think full credit. I don't think anyway it's possible to shift, things back. I think equally there's an onus on supporters. You got to realize where you're going to, and going to need to go, that good bit early. There's plenty of things. I've said it before. Plenty of things in Salt Hill to amuse anybody for an hour or two. You don't even have to spend money. You can walk up and down the prom. It's most enjoyable. You're not going to go from South Galway across Galway, without getting stuck in traffic. It happens to all of us every blooming day of the week if you want to go from A to B in it. Um, I think it won't be a problem if they were playing their big championship match later on. People would deal with it. But look at, I think, what was it? All of the Leinster attendances combined only equaled what was in Cusack Park in Ennis. And that's,
Yeah.
there was probably three matches in the Leinster Championship at the weekend. So, that's probably, it's a fair comparison though. It's a fair comparison.
Yeah, I think you definitely want to probably see an increase for the Offaly game on Sunday. Now, I think there probably is maybe some of the hurling fraternity that will
Yeah,
want to
I don't
watch
think you will.
want to
I
watch
hope
Cork
I'm
and Limerick
wrong.
at home.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
hope I'm wrong. I think a lot will head off to Carrick and Shannon on Saturday. There'll be a good group will go there. I would I don't think there'll be a bigger crowd. I hope I'm wrong. I sincerely hope it.
yeah,
But I don't think this is all about crowds either. I think this is, about performances. Um, like realistically, what you're looking at here is Galway have taken a huge step towards a Leinster final appearance.
yeah,
That's the first part of it. And without running too far ahead of yourself, you've Wexford, Offaly, Dublin, Kildare to deal with along the way. If you're serious about any of your ambitions, Wexford aside, none, even Dublin, I know they've a bit of a hex in Galway to a degree or whatever, but you should be fancying your chances with that. Target from here, I would have thought, should be Leinster final, win it. You're into an All-Ireland semi-final. You're 70
Yeah.
minutes away from an All-Ireland. That to me is the pathway for Galway. And worrying or trying to bring supporters with you will solve itself, I'll tell you very quickly, if you take that pathway. It plus I think in fairness as well, there's a lot of other hurling under 20 and minor on as well, with two very good teams following, and I think you'll find people. It's an expensive business. I think people will pick and choose a bit like that. But if you have a lesser crowd in Pure Stadium next Sunday, I don't think it's reflective of what people think of the team or their performances or where they're headed for whatever or any of that. I don't think that's particularly relevant, to be honest, at the moment. I think it's what's happening on the pitch is what's exciting.
If you look at the game and you even look at the first quarter, it might be where Galway will actually probably look at the performance in that first quarter and probably be the most, I'd say, area that they'll want to improve. Because, like, when Jordan Malloy put Kilkenny 6-4 ahead, that was a real goal chance for Kilkenny.
Yeah, there's a couple of good goal chances. Another day they may well have taken all of that. I thought the first real marker was laid down when Galway opted to play against the wind.
Yeah.
And like I'm hand to my heart, I thought, geez, I don't think that's the wisest thing. I was thinking, take the wind, build a lead. You're really building from the last day in it. And I think it showed the belief they had that they felt they could more than contain it and get the wind on Kilkenny, have the bench to come on, to have the legs on them as well, to do all of that. As it turned out, they didn't need to. The game won at half time. Straight and simple as that. Um, Another day, if you think back to the Charlie Carters and the DJ Careys, those sort of chances, yeah, yeah. Look, equally so, Galway could look at a few that go with a lot of wides in the opening half. Another day, you'd expect them to sail in. So they tend to balance stuff out like that. I think the two goals in the second quarter were the key. I just couldn't see Kilkenny coming back from that, and I could understand from there to a degree why Galway went against the wind. They had the belief. They had the belief to do it.
Yeah, even when Whelan makes it 7-6 on 24 minutes, that first goal for Galway where Keane Daniels gets it out to Tiernan Clean drives it down the line, and Rory Burke cuts inside and finishes superbly. Like, it was a terrific move.
There were so many parts. There were so many parts to that move alone. The dominance of Killeen and Daniels in midfield was outstanding, but their distribution of their ball was superb. Like they'd a couple of young corner forwards in their debutants, same as Rory Burke on the wing, and the quality of the ball that went up to. And I hadn't really noticed Rory Burke much up to that, to be brutally honest. Maybe because there was so much else going on. But the manner in which he turned Paddy D and slipped it around side him. Now, there's a lad making his first championship start, a chance to make an impact in it. Take the point. Take the point. It's like, but it was no, it was like head down, straight in, and buried it. And really, you could nearly say from that minute, you know, that was the game. That was Galway that backed it up after that, as did Burke. But just the sheer confidence and maybe it's the exuberance of youth or whatever, but to get around such an experienced defender and create the space with it and have the ruthlessness to go in and go for it and bury it. And let's face it, you and I have had this conversation. Galway haven't been goal scoring teams
Yeah.
in it. So to go for that, get it.
They
Uh,
only got 6 goals in the league
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the
Like,
6 games, yeah.
didn't get
So,
any against Kilkenny, if I remember correctly. It was
yeah.
35 points. Like it. So to go for that and then to get the penalty thereafter and stick that as well and like turn around 5 points up. Um, to me, it was game over. I think the sending off after half time, John Donnelly's, yeah, it had an impact. It just made an unlikely Kilkenny revival less unlikely. To me, I don't think it was a game changer. I think the game was over at that stage. Like it was a reckless challenge. born a bit of frustration as much as anything. It was a correct call. Um, at the same time, wasn't particularly foul in that card. He was just needing to lay down a marker, and probably summed up Kilkenny on the day as well. They were inaccurate in so much of what they did. Um, but after that, really it was, you know, you were struggling to keep the game alive after that, to be quite honest. Which again is credit to Galway, fair play. The pitch seemed to get a bit wider as well, didn't it? As the
Yeah,
gone.
I don't think I've ever seen it looking
Yeah,
that
yeah.
wide.
Yeah, the little go games at half time, they were worn out, I think, going back and forth. But hey, you use every advantage, don't you? You know, that style of play, that flow of it, um, it'll thrive in space and everything. Put put the Munster teams into the equation, the space will become a lot less. I think everyone knows that, but
Yeah.
the task now is Leinster first and take the shortest route to the All Ireland series as you possibly can, and it's there for Galway after that.
Even Rory Burke's penalty, I don't think Kenny can have any complaints whatsoever about the black card to Mikey Carey after
Yeah, I
taking.
didn't for a moment. I didn't think there was even going to be a card the way it was going, and then
Mm,
it was the booking. No, it wasn't, and it was the opportunity that created it that was brilliant about it. Like he was going for goal, s- straight into it. There was no like if he hadn't been fouled, it was going to be a goal. That was the other side of it, and the fact that he had no more than Rory Burke prior to that, you know, notions of taking points to hell with it. If the goal is on, they're going for it. And you look at Jason Rabbit as well, just the impact he had. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the first three or the first four frees Aaron Ireland scored were all for fouls and Rabbit. It, it's. I think I'm convinced that's his father's love he has as well. Actually, but what an introduction! What an introduction to the whole lot of it. It's great to see.
did we get away with one before half time? Obviously, that goal mount scramble, Burke gets out in
Yeah, yeah. I watched it over and over again. I don't know how the ball got into his hand. Um, that's your experience, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think, in fairness, there was a chance before that. Who was totally smothered. It was even difficult to credit who had made the block because there were two or three there, and that was similar as well in it. Like Burke had hurled so well at centre back. Yeah, undoubtedly, like a lot of other referees, a lot of umpires. He did it so quickly. Uh,
yeah,
but what did he to lose? The
yeah.
ball was in the net if he didn't, and um,
In
he
fairness, you're actually not going to spot it with the amount of bodies around
absolutely,
the
and he
ball
has such
either.
a shrug of the shoulders, like what's the big deal type thing. Yeah, another day you mightn't get that, there, but you make your own luck in a lot of these things or whatever. Like it's the thing is, if you didn't do that, the ball's in the net, so why not? Compared to taking a fella down and giving away a black card, it's you take that any day of the week. It's I think that's one of the things Neil Dunn will be drilling into his lads, without dampening it so much. But you got to put into context, Kilkenny failed to fire a shot really worth
Yeah.
talking about. And some of those breaks did go Galway's way that another day mightn't. All of that. It's not to take anything away from it, but I think it needs context as well. Um, in that another day those things mightn't hop your way.
Just on Saturday, because it probably did get lost with all the young guns impressing and having really impressive championship debuts. Turlough Moore had a post up after the game. Saturday was Dahi Burke's 100 appearance for Galway, 65 games in championship, 35 games in league. To consider all the seasons he's went through, plenty of ups and downs to make your 100 appearances remarkable achievement.
It's absolutely remarkable, and don't forget, for an awful long time as well, he was soldiering with Galway and soldiering with Corofin, through a very, very arduous club championship, right through all of that as well. Just an outstanding athlete. No, it's that ability to read read the play. So it looks simple where he pops up, but it's that ability to almost anticipate. So it looks effortless, a lot of it, but it's not. He just a superb reader of the whole lot of it. 100 appearances, 65. The fact that it's a breakdown of that is two-thirds championship,
Yeah.
one-third is indicative of where he spent his winters. It was winning All Ireland Club football championships for Corofin. So if there wasn't the Corofin part of it, you'd be up to 150 plus at this
Yeah.
stage. Um, and it's clear as well on Saturday. He's a key man. He's the centre back now. We spoke earlier on where we didn't know who the Galway centre back was. I'm sure later on will teams try and target him, but teams have been, you know, targeting him with big full forwards when he was full back. It doesn't seem to bother him. Doesn't seem to bother him. It's an outstanding milestone to reach 100 performances and still motoring along.
Yeah, and he's even won five All-Stars, and you wouldn't be surprised maybe if you
Yeah.
were to see a sixth later this year that he could add to it. Just as well, someone to mention, Ronan Glennon this year at cornerback. His players went through a lot of different positions for Galway, and before this year, he's been between midfield, uh, wing back, but cornerback this year, the pace he's given going forward is something else, and even he's playing on the edge and he's playing with a real intensity at times. For me, looking at Glennon this year, I probably would say he's Galway's most improved hurler.
Absolutely. And when you have a cornerback scoring 2 points from play, you're sort of wondering where as well, like that. He certainly has slotted in there. He like there's good pace there as well, good delivery. It's I think nearly to a degree he must have been wondering himself, where is my position in all of this?
Mm,
Because lads were coming in and taking over a lot of that, and you still have guys like Joshua Ryan and a few more like
yeah.
that are going to be clipping away at his heels as well. But he had an outstanding match as well on Saturday. So he's in there. There's there's a consistency about his play. But again, I would qualify it. What are we going to see from other corner forwards that are going in there that we
Yeah.
haven't seen and might not see during Leinster? But these lads can only play against what's in front of them and play extremely well as he did on Saturday.
This episode is sponsored by DroneWorks Ireland, your go-to place when it comes to buying a drone, repairing a drone, and also when you need professionals to carry out any aerial work you may need. Check out their website at www.droneworksireland.ie. As I mentioned, the John Donnelly Red was a turning point, but I think the big talking point from that red is probably sometimes maybe you see with teams that go down to 14 men, they can only raise their game a level, and they can nearly just throw everything at you. But I think even after he got the red card, we really didn't see Kilkenny fire a shot, as you mentioned, and like getting points early in the second half from Glennon, Aaron Nyland, Roy Burke, Nyland, and then when the Rabbit goal comes and it's 3-12 to 12, you just
Yeah.
sort of know Galway were home and
And
hosed.
let's not forget when Donnelly got sent off, I think they were down to 13 men for a few minutes at that.
Yeah,
They were waiting for Mikey Carey to come back as well. You're playing against the wind, you're down 5 points. You haven't really had a ball hop in your favour the whole day. It's your only scoring threat is a 38-year-old um, playing at full forward. An outstanding player as he is, but you know, if we were in Kilkenny this week, you'd be asking like, where were the guys to step up to the mark when it was needed? Um, Losing by 18 points in the league, their biggest defeat in what 74 years, is embarrassing enough. But to get beaten 15 points in a championship match for any county is poor. But goodness sake, for Kilkenny, which is the only real sport they have, in fairness, in terms of a county one, um, it leaves them with an awful lot to do, and they didn't even. There wasn't really a kick out of them, even when the DM was dead and buried. I know they got a goal from a penalty from from TJ, but it was just glossing over it. Like, at that stage, Rabbit had ran through and dummied and buried.
What about Rabbit's composure there, though, to just go in and sometimes you might see players in that when they get that opportunity, they could just sky it or something, but the composure is just was just
Yeah,
something
yeah.
else.
He's obviously playing with an awful lot of confidence. I thought it was great as well. The fact he was interviewed live on television afterwards, delivered himself quite well in that as well. It's something we've spoken about, as did Rory Burke as well.
Mm.
New lads stepping up to it. But it's going to bring him on in leaps and bounds. It's why wouldn't it? Like, and you know, knowing his father, he's not going to be getting carried away with any of it. He is not the most decorated player in his own family, let alone anything else, given what his sisters have achieved in recent months and all that. But it must give a huge boost, as it must to Aaron Nyland's, Rory Burke, Keane Daniels. There's a lot to be built upon, a lot to be built upon. I think if anything, there'll be a bit of leveling off this week, as in can't get carried away with that. You know, Offaly will come in, skirting around the place to, they'll come in buoyed as well, having decent performance against Dublin and nothing whatsoever to lose. You know,
Just touching on Kilkenny for a minute, because if you're looking at the overall context of the Leinster Championship at the minute, they play Wexford Saturday, and even going by previous years, their record against Wexford hasn't been hectic in the past, but it is definitely worrying to lose to Galway by 18 and 15 points. You can't really say it's a good thing for the Leinster Championship when you take your Galway hat off because um, it's
yeah.
it's not too good at the minute. And even I think if you look at the Kilkenny team, if you look at the core bunch of players, those 9 or 10 players that have been there for the last six Leinster titles in a row, after those core bunch of players, there's a massive drop off.
But that's what we're saying. Like, but where would they get them from if they haven't been producing minor and under 20 teams and players that
Mm.
they've always traditionally done through the schools, through all of that? So they're going through a generational gap. They went through it as well. Was it into the 80s? Was it after the 80s? There was a spell there where they just dropped off it as well, but then regrouped it through that tradition route, Kieran's into the minors, right up through it. And that's a slow build. That's a slow build into it. With regard to the Leinster Championship and Munster Championship, there's only the two of them in it. But let's face it, the last 7, 8 years since particularly that format came into Munster as a competition, as a standalone competition, it has been absolutely awesome. No matter what sport you're into, any of that. It's no coincidence either. It's been producing the All Ireland champions every year since Galway now, isn't it?
Yeah, every year since
Every
Galway.
year,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's no coincidence. Often it's two teams from Munster that are in it as well. Um, the At the same time, Leinster will probably be more competitive this year. Um, Kildare gave Wexford a run for their money last Saturday evening. Now we've seen that sort of stuff as well, where sort of the new team coming in, whether it was Carlow or Laois or Antrim, that first day out, they give it absolutely everything, and they had Wexford troubled for a while. Wexford turned to type Leach in, pull them out. There was a couple of goal chances Kildare could have got that could have made that very, very nervous in it. And then Offaly, drawing with Dublin, could have beaten them, certainly had their measure. So you would think put all of that into the pot together, and it should be, as a competition, should be a lot more competitive this year. And that's what you need. What you don't want are one-sided games. Galway going and beating everyone handy, Kilkenny beating everyone handy, and that's the fact Munster is so good is you have five teams with very little between any of the five of them. Um, so I think hopefully we'll get a more competitive Leinster, and the three that will come out of it will be all the better for that.
Do you think Kilkenny are in danger of not coming out of Leinster, or do you still think there's
Uh,
enough?
I think they'll still make it out. Like
Yeah.
they're certainly making it hard for themselves. If they lose to Wexford next week, would it come down to a showdown between themselves and Dublin or something like that?
Funnily enough, they actually have Galway, Wexford, and Dublin in their first three games.
Yeah, yeah, like it's so like if they lost the three of them, that's it. Good night. They can beat Kildare and Offaly all they want.
I think the Wexford game will be real tight because
I
you
I
consider
think
they don't have John Donnelly now. Like that's a scoring forward
yeah,
gone.
but I think equally so the likes of Kenny, a few of these, I think you'll see an awful lot more
Mm.
from them. I think the backlash we anticipated in Pearse Stadium. Let's not forget they hadn't won a match in Pearse Stadium since 2009. That ground has a hex on them anyway, it seems.
Yeah,
But I think I would imagine the backlash we expected last Saturday will actually come next Saturday. And you'll see it against Wexford, and then they're back and then they're right back in the ball game.
yeah,
It's all bets off. You could have Galway Leinster or Galway Kilkenny Leinster final. Um, bring your 15-point win, your 18-point win up to that, and
yeah,
see how far it'll get you or whatever. You don't know. There's a lot. I think Galway's case, take care of their own business. Offaly next Sunday. Don't underestimate that. Don't make it into a dogfight. Um, there's no reason it should, but there's every chance it could. Um, and there's expectation attached to Galway now and maybe a bit of a swagger and all of that. And if you were an Offaly person coming in there and Johnny Kelly in charge of them as well, wouldn't you love having a crack at them? Because Offaly have nothing to lose. If Offaly get beaten 20 points, so what? Sure, Kilkenny came out of here 15 points beaten. Um, and there'll be a pep and Offaly step after that match against Dublin. That was a tough outing, and in many ways, if a team was going to win that game, it should have been Offaly, not Dublin. That's
yeah.
interesting.
Just even Galway's bench as well, adding scores. Conor Cooney getting two scores. Darren Neary, Colin Malloy, Evan Nyland even getting a free there at the end.
Yeah.
And Neary scores. He's making some impact this year.
Yeah, it's I the two of them, the two players that really stood out for me that came off the bench was Conor Cooney. That is a role he could play this year where you're
Mm.
bringing on an experienced sharpshooter. You can put him on freeze if need be, if somebody's having a nightmare or something like that. And just that impact, like he's done it all before. He's a quality player, big physical presence as well. Could be absolutely invaluable in that sort of, I won't quite say no lane type sub or whatever, but where you're bringing on somebody with the Darren Erie, geez, you'd love to see more of him.
Yeah,
It's is wow, it's just there's a cut about him that you're just thinking, gosh, could this lad take off? Um, like the scores he got, outstanding strikes. Um, could he start on Sunday? Could he, would Galway risk rotating this team on Sunday? Would there be merit in that? If there is, you'd imagine he would come in and start. Um, there could be merit, but like I just thought of all the subs that we said made an impact, including Kieran Hannon in much earlier than anticipated as well. But in terms of the old and the new, the role Cooney can play in that, and I I I, I know it was only a cameo, but you just sort of got the hint from Darren Erie. If he got a run at this at all, he wouldn't be coming out of that team. That's the other part of it. So, lads,
yeah. I think there was a bit of surprise too that maybe he didn't start because the performance, the last competitive game we seen against Limerick, like he was sensational when he
yeah,
came
yeah.
on.
It's and as I said, we don't know what's happening in
Yeah,
training, and they're going on that, and quite clearly, rightly so, given the performance and all that. I think what it will do to all players, not just the young lads that come into them, they're looking at guys coming off the bench like that. They realize they're not infallible either, or that there's any places nailed down here. You go through a bad 10 or 15 minute spell and you could be getting the curly finger and a Darren Neary coming in after 20 minutes or somebody like that. It's certainly there, but to have the onus taken off Cathal Mannion and Conor Whelan to be producing all your scores and allowing them still to have such a big contribution to make in it is it augurs well. It augurs well, there's no doubt about it. And I would see a lot. I think we'd be a bit wiser on Sunday evening as well. I don't think there's any shock coming there, but you could have been leveling off of stuff as well.
Yeah, obviously, as you mentioned, Joshua Ryan pulled up a training last week, and I think unfortunate for him because um, it would have been a great moment for him to make his championship debut last Saturday. You consider he featured in all six league games. I think he was in pole position probably to start there as well. Brian Cannon picked up an injury as well, so I don't think the two of them will be back
Yeah.
from this weekend, from what we're hearing. But overall, I think the where the squad is at the minute, like there's real strength and depth now.
I find it a bit comparable to the footballers of recent years, actually, where, they lose a Peter Cook who isn't available, or, Matthew Thompson or somebody's not, or a player is injured, and you have this, you get a 15 out on the pitch and you get subs coming on, and then somebody mentions two or three names that aren't even featured in it. That's, gosh, your lies, that depth. I think there's a parallel there as well, and I think the modern game has shown that's what you need. Um, that really, and we've seen it with Limerick. We've seen it, where Limerick went through one season there where they were losing defenders at a rate of one a match almost, and yet it it was the strength they had at player 24, 25, 26, 27 that ultimately made the difference, that they were able to bring them down to that. And that's where Galway are heading. If what we've seen in the league and we've seen in the first match of the championship, that clearly is where they're heading. And we've seen what that's done, we'll say, in the football context in terms of you need that. The converse of that we're saying the last week, Kilkenny didn't seem to have that to spring into it. But it's early days. It's early days at the same time. Like, we won't get too carried away with it either.
Looking at Offaly this weekend, the one thing you would probably say is as good as Offaly's performance was against Dublin, how much of last Saturday is that going to take out Offaly? Like they did get two or three knocks throughout that game.
Yeah.
They have probably struggled in the past. Like they did have a big performance last year against
Y-
Dublin, and even if you take it back to last year, Galway supporters probably felt a bit vulnerable going to Tullamore last year after the hammer into Kilkenny in the Leinster Championship, and Galway got the job done relatively easy enough. Like we all expected that to be a lot closer than it was.
Yeah, there is that. And I would imagine, Johnny Kelly and Offaly would have sort of targeted, look, if you look at these, what's winnable? What's Dublin, they would have fancied they're kind of a right cut here. Realistically, Galway, no. So you put a huge effort and onus into that and got a result out of it. Um, Everything would tell you Galway should win on Sunday and should win it Sunday enough. But I just think Offaly are a year older. Um, they haven't changed hugely with that. They're a bit a year down the track. They have nothing to lose, and that's always dangerous. And it's always dangerous with an Offaly team. You just don't know in that context. And you could have a wind or something on Sunday that doesn't work in your favor. That you could get a lot of improbables into that could make it a bit more difficult than it should be. But my goodness, it would be a shock for the ages if you didn't have a Galway win out of all that. I think to be in Galway's interest if it was tight, and
Yeah,
that a 15 or 20 point win, great, you're beating what's in front of, but you might learn an awful lot from a bit more of a dogfight than anything else. And fine pull away towards the end of it. But yeah, it should be get in there, get job done, on to the next one, really, is as much as that should amount to. And avoid injury, avoid there seems to be good discipline in that Galway team as well. There's um you keep your men on the pitch as well into the whole lot of it. But
yeah.
it's a buzz. The buzz is back in Galway. There's no doubt about that. And brilliant as it is.
Yeah, even if you're looking at Offaly's performance from the weekend, scoring 422, and you look at the spread across the forwards, Adam Screeney 1-9, Brian Duignan 1-2, Dan Burke 3 points, Shane Rigney a goal, and Charlie Mitchell as well with 1-3. They have him back. He obviously goes to college in the University of Galway, and people were obviously wondering why he wasn't featured throughout the year for them, but obviously had that scare with his heart. And I think his
Yeah,
hurling supporters just fantastic to see him back. And Jesus, the character of the man, his first performance, or his first
absolutely.
start this year, and to go out and get man of the match with
Yeah,
Dublin,
yeah,
something
yeah.
else. Like,
Absolutely. It puts the whole lot into context. We all get excited and hot and bothered about it or whatever, but still, ultimately, it's only a sport. And you see what that young man and his family have had to go through and deal with, and you couldn't but wish him well and all around him. Um, that's a lot of time you don't know that about people. You don't know what's going on in anybody's place like that. But for him, to come up with something like that and be able to deliver it is brilliant. It's they've a lot of good hurlers, Offaly, and
yeah.
the likes of like Screeney, as he walk onto any team in the country. The likes of Brian Dignan has been around a long while now. He'll be a handful for whoever is there. I'm sure himself and Dahi will reintroduce themselves at some point in the whole lot of it as well. And we'll be all better off for that.
Are awfully fair enough down the line to challenge this weekend, or do you see maybe Galway just having too much power?
Yeah, I don't. I think they can make life difficult for Galway, but I think you'd need an awful lot of things to align for that to happen. I don't think they have that depth into it. You just you don't want to make it difficult on yourself more than anything else. Be interested to see if there's a wind on Sunday and Galway get it, will they take it or go against it? Would you just
Yeah.
not take it and put the game to bed after 20 minutes, um, or is that when Offaly you're going to have everything fired? And it's answer the question. It's very hard to see anything other than a Galway victory. It just might not be as straightforward, um, or as easy as last Saturday was. Because in fairness, a lot of them shouldn't be at championship level at that stage. Um, Never underestimate them though.
Yeah. It sets them up nicely too. Like if you look at it from a Galway perspective, if they're to get a result this weekend, uh, they'll have a break then the Maybank holiday weekend, then a return to action trip to Newbridge on May 9th, then Dublin at home on May 16th, and then May 24th finish against Wexford. So get a result here against Offaly. They're going, I suppose, in with a nice week's break and then 3 games to come, and you expect them
Yeah,
then to be in a really good position for a Leinster final.
it's it's when I say it is set up for them, they've set it up for themselves by dealing with last Saturday. Like, think about it for a moment. Supposing we had the Kilkenny backlash, Galway didn't respond to it, and Galway starting the championship losing their first match at home. You'd be reading off an entirely different script this week of, oh, you need to do this, that, and the other, and stay alive for going to Wexford in the final round and all that. That win is just, change the focus in. Here's the pathway into it. It is measured up. You should have 2 wins under your belt going into a break, couple of more coming after that. Um, you know, it, you'd like to think this will be done and dusted by the time they face Wexford. That would be it's set up for that, entirely up to themselves, but what a great start.
Yeah, I think particularly with that week's break to come and then 3 games in 3 weeks, they're in a very strong position. A question here that came in from Sean Maloney: do we expect Niall and Rabbit to start for the 20s tomorrow night against Kilkenny, and they'll be benched for the Offaly match on Sunday? I think you'd probably be starting them in both games. Really, to be honest, their confidence is at an all-time high.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's. I'd like to think they'll start for the 20s. Uh,
yeah,
where, if possible, you know, where if possible, you should play your age grade right through it. And let's, as we said earlier in this conversation, Galway haven't won an All Ireland under 20 or 21 since 2011, and it's a grade that has served Galway superbly from the 70s onwards, right through. A lot of those All Ireland winning teams came through what actually happened at under 21 level more so than at minor. Um, and if you looked at it a different way, let them play their under 20s. Next Sunday, you have plenty of other lads chomping at the bit to come in, your Darren Eries right away, any of the other lads, there's plenty of people to start. Um, and just keep it level for Nyland and Rabbit as well. Like that you earn your day, you earn your place every day in it. Um, so I'd hate to see them miss out on under 20. I think Galway needs that as well. And you would expect them to have a big impact at that age, dropping down from senior. What a boost to other lads in that dressing room to see two or three lads coming through the door who have, done it live on television, a senior championship match. It's an enormous lift to a team. Like I remember back in the mid 80s when you had Andy Cunningham, Joe Cooney, all these lads coming back, having played with the seniors into the under 21, and you're wow, like it's because it also shows these 20-year-olds this is how near ye are to the big time as well. So I would hope they get to play their under 20. I see no reason why. Plenty of options next Sunday against Offaly if it comes to it. If
Yeah, and even they've started fairly decent already, beating Wexford and Kildare, beat Kilkenny tomorrow night, or a draw, or even if they lose it, they probably are still likely to end up in a semi-final having 4 points from the first two games. Now Kilkenny obviously overtake them if they win that, but if they are able to top the group, they'll be straight into semi-final, which should be a really strong position
yeah,
to be in there. But even for the two lads, like if you take it back to what Tipperary last year, Farrell and McCarthy, they went between both grades throughout the year, 20s and seniors, did no harm whatsoever. And you can be sure if they weren't playing the 20s game, for instance, they're going to be going probably through an intense training in Loch George with the competition that's in the senior squad.
absolutely.
So playing a game does no harm whatsoever.
None whatsoever. And they have the options there. And Michael Donoghue has the options as well, to rotate players, for the want of a better way of putting it. Keep lads hungry as well into it. So it's not as if you have 15 and that's all you've really have to choose from or anything like that. There's lots of other lads there, you know, might be no harm to give them their run as well. And it's a great position to be in. It's a great position to be in, but it's sort of a rising tide. Like I think it's I think it's so important the under 20s do well this year. You need to bolster up a lot of what's there, and as you said, you saw the tip it didn't knock a flicket out of them last year. Like it's not as if these lads are doing a leaving cert or anything this year. They've that out of the way.
Yeah.
Incredible in one sense. It's no, let them loose.
Yeah, even with as well, Sean Murphy and Cullen Clean, I'm sure going back for the 20s for them being on the fringes of the senior squad, it's big for them too. I know Sean Murphy picked up a shoulder injury in the last few weeks, so I'm not sure where he is um, in relation to that too. But before we finish, John, like they are favourites for Leinster now at the minute. I don't think you can say anything other than they're not trying to play this down, Anton.
Yeah, yeah. They'd have to be. And it's not just based on last Saturday, based on the league, based on Kilkenny's decline, all of that. To me, the perfect scenario would be work your way through this and meet Kilkenny again in the Leinster final. And I think that would be a brilliant prep if you want to go another step along the way. Let's like in fairness to Kilkenny, I would not write them off. They've won six in a row on it. They've
Yeah.
Just because they didn't respond last Saturday doesn't mean they're not going to find a kick into it. They are probably the most natural hurlers in the country, bar none. They're, I can only imagine the grief they're going through down there at the moment. They haven't become that bad of a team overnight. They've had a couple of horrid performances. Don't forget, you remember, was it after the Galway one that went down themselves, or that was Waterford Kilkenny? There was a lot of, you know, big tussles there as well into it. A scenario where I think it'd be good for Galway. Get to a Leinster final and find Kilkenny there ahead of you, and then because worst case scenario you're into the quarterfinals, but there's a golden opportunity there, and I think Galway, if they are favourites for any of that amounts to Yeah, that's the expectation. I think they'll be well capable of dealing with. And you just see that they're hurling like nobody's watching in one sense. Like
Yeah.
it's coming naturally to them, which is great. We haven't seen that in recent years, and hopefully it's the start of a particularly good period. And there's everything to suggest it is.
Just a reminder, I think, for people like we only have three Bob O'Keefe cups. Like
Yeah,
there
yeah.
has been a lot of pain when it's came to getting this trophy on our hands.
Totally and absolutely. And I was going to say it's a big cup. It is a big cup, the biggest of the whole lot of them. But I think it's also a milestone into it. Win that, see where you go to from there. In other words, just let that become the new bar. At least if you haven't won a league, you've won a provincial championship, you push on from there um, into it as well. I certainly wouldn't underestimate it. I don't think anybody would. And again, if I can draw a parallel to the Galway footballers and Pádraig Joyce and all of his players and management have placed huge stock on winning Connacht over the last few years as well. Even allowing for the All Ireland disappointment that came into it, they placed huge stock in it, and rightly so. It's an important. There's only really three competitions you can win in the year: the league, your provincial championship, and the All Ireland. Um, I know there's a Welsh Cup back in January, but worth talking about in these. Um, so to nail one of them this year would be another step in the right direction. And I would say to people as well, it's 3:30 on Sunday in there. Don't put yourself through the nightmare of traffic coming across town at the last minute or whatever. Plenty of places for lunch in Salt Hill. I'm from Salt Hill. Plenty of things to amuse yourself there on the prom and everywhere else. Come in and enjoy the day in a relaxed form. And the same to Offaly supporters as well. It You won't get across through Galway at the last minute.
Yeah.
Believe me, I know it. Unless you have a bike, then but hopefully it'll be a good one. Hopefully it'll be a good one.
Yeah, that's 3:30 go Offaly, and it's not on GA Plus, or there's no coverage of this. Probably Sunday game highlights will probably be the only place you can see it as well, just for supporters there. But that's all we do time for on today's show. John, thanks a million for your time.
Pleasure, Paul.
The Galway minor hurlers as well just did enough to see off leash at the weekend in the opening round of the Leinster Minor Hurling Championship, winning out on a final scoreline of 123 to 119. On the pattern of the game for people who didn't see it, Galway raced into a 1-5 to 2 point lead after Owen McAlern got a goal on 8 minutes after a terrific individual run. Leash hit back with a goal of their own, then to make it 1-5 to 1-2 through Callum Jones on 12 minutes. Then Go are always sort of able to keep their noses in front in the first half. Um, Anthony Poignard's accuracy proved crucial, particularly in that first half, and Galway led 112 to 1-6 after the break. Then scored from Michael Cohn, and Poignard put them into a 114 to 1-7 lead. Um, and then they pushed on even further with Ultan O'Connor, and Poignard extended the lead to 116 to 1-7. In fairness to Laois, they kept battling away and had it back to 118 to 113 on 47 minutes. Then two more Poignard frees extended Galway's lead to 120 to 113 on 50 minutes. But Laois again kept battling away through Luke Hines in midfield, who impressed, and through LJ Cuddy as well, who scored 13 points. Poignard finishing down with 11. Laois, in fairness, managed to get it back to 4 points at the end, to make it 123 to 119. But that was as good as it got for them, as Galway held on for a 4 point victory and will look to really back it up with two wins out of two this Saturday when they take on Kilkenny in round two of the Leinster Minor Hurling Championship. Kenneth Burkett's his third year in charge of the Galway Minor Hurlers. He's added Colm Callanan to his backroom team, which is a really smart appointment when you look at it. Callahan's been involved with Napier down in Limerick for the last few years and has obviously worked with Johnny Kelly then with Offaly. So to have Callanan involved and then to add someone like Paul Hubban into the backroom team as well, who's been a key part of Loughrea's team over the last few years and led Pres Athenry last year to the Crook Cup final as manager. So two really smart additions there to the backroom team. Just the scores then, Anthony Poignard, he finished with 11 points, 9 from frees, 165. Michael Cohen, 2 points. Tom McAdam, a point. Owen McAlaren, 1-1. Ultan O'Connor, 2 points. Jamie Egan, he got 2 points in the middle of the field, along with Gus Lohan in midfield. And Joey McMahon got a point, as well as Cullen Lean chipping in with a point as well off the bench. And as I mentioned, Galway face Kilkenny this weekend, and then they'll conclude their round robin campaign against Dublin. But a victory in either of the next two games is likely to send them through to the semi-finals. In fairness, Laois had an advantage. They were in tier two of the competition at the weekend on the back of three games. But this was Galway's first competitive outing, so they'll be really looking to, I suppose, improve from last Saturday and really push on in the next two games, in particular, then, and get into the knockout stages of the Leinster Minor Hurling Championship.